Welcome to Conspiracist. Today, we're really diving deep into this specific hypothesis, the idea that there might be intentional government concealment of evidence connecting Hollywood and the Illuminati. We've got a range of sources in front of us, some articles looking at celebrities, a Reddit discussion on film symbolism, actually, and an academic paper analyzing the whole aesthetic of American Illuminati theories.
Right, and there's also a study on occult symbols in pop culture generally, plus a master's thesis that zooms right in on supposed Illuminati symbols in Star Wars, The Force Awakens specifically.
Exactly. So our mission here, as always, is to objectively evaluate the claims, look at the reasoning presented in these materials, and just, maintain a professional and unbiased view throughout.
Definitely. And to really get a handle on the current hypothesis, I think we have to start at the beginning with the origins of these Illuminati conspiracy theories themselves.
Okay.
So there's a historical Bavarian Illuminati, real group, founded back in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. And their goals, well, they were advocating for free thought, secularism, liberalism, republicanism, pretty forward-thinking ideas for that era, really.
Sounds like it. But they didn't last long.
No, not really. By 1785, the Bavarian government had effectively suppressed the organization. And honestly, the historical record just doesn't show any solid evidence they continued beyond that point.
So a relatively short-lived group, historically. How did they end up becoming, the center of these huge, sprawling conspiracy theories then?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The seed, you could argue, was planted around 1797. There was this book, John Robison's Proofs of a Conspiracy. And this book basically claimed, falsely it turns out, that this vast conspiracy, masterminded by the Illuminati, who he claimed were still active, was working to subvert religion and governments all over Europe.
And that idea found an audience.
It really did, especially in the United States. The narrative just landed on fertile ground there.
Can you expand on that? How was it received in early America?
Well, the Federalist Party, they really latched onto Robison's claims. They used it as, frankly, a political weapon.
They would attack opponents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Accusing their rivals, people like Thomas Jefferson even, of being part of this dangerous secret society, this Illuminati. It created this whole Illuminati scare for a while. And even though that specific scare eventually died down, the underlying idea, this notion of a hidden group pulling strings behind the scenes, it really took root in the American mindset. It shows how, a specific historical moment can really amplify a narrative like that.
And this core idea, it didn't just stay frozen in time, did it? It sounds like it evolved, pulled in new fears, new targets.
Precisely. That's a key thing about these theories. Later on, you had writers like Nesta Webster who expanded the whole thing. She linked the Illuminati to, broader anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about a supposed Jewish peril.
Right.
And then much later, during the Cold War, you had groups like the John Birch Society reinterpreting the Illuminati again this time, seeing them as the sort of historical ancestor of the communist movement.
So it's incredibly adaptable.
Highly adaptable. It just keeps getting repurposed to explain whatever the big societal fear is at the time.
Which suggests, maybe, that the appeal isn't so much about the actual Bavarian group from the 1700s,
right,
but more about a general anxiety about hidden power, about secret influence.
I think that's a really sharp observation. And one of the academic papers we looked at supports that. It points to this pre-existing anxiety in America about conspiracy, about deceit, that really goes way back even to the 18th century. The whole Federalist campaign you mentioned earlier, trying to shape public opinion. It just highlights how sensitive the culture was, even then, to the idea of hidden agendas.
And it wasn't just politics, right? Our sources suggest these kinds of anxieties were showing up in culture, too, like in early American literature.
Yes, exactly. You see themes of, secret witnesses, hidden sins of the nation popping up in early American writing. It reflects this cultural preoccupation with unseen forces, hidden truths affecting society. Understanding that historical backdrop, it kind of helps you see why these Illuminati theories have had such staying power in American culture.
Okay, so let's shift to the modern context then. The phrase New World Order, or NWO, comes up constantly when people talk about Hollywood and the Illuminati. What exactly is the NWO theory and how does it connect here?
Right, the NWO. So this theory basically proposes that there's a secret elite, a clandestine group, with a globalist agenda, and their goal, supposedly, is to create this authoritarian one-world government.
And the Illuminati are part of this.
Well, the theory posits that this elite group, which includes everyone from historical figures to current leaders, supposedly operates through all sorts of front organizations. And the connection made is often that the original Bavarian Illuminati, or some group like it, never really went away. They just secretly continued and evolved into this modern NWO structure.
I see. And symbols play a big role in these NWO claims, don't they?
Oh, absolutely central. You often see conspiracy theorists pointing to things like the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States. You know, the pyramid with the all-seeing eye.
Mm-hmm. The one on the dollar bill?
That's the one. And the Latin motto, Novus Ordo Seclorum. Now, historically, that just meant New Order of the Ages, referring to the new American Republic. But theorists reinterpret it as a deliberate nod to this New World Order.
And Freemasonry gets pulled in, too.
Frequently. Freemasonry is a totally separate fraternal organization with its own history and symbols. But in these conspiracy narratives, it often gets tangled up or conflated with the Illuminati, adding another layer of supposed hidden connections and secret meanings.
There's also this idea of predictive programming that often gets linked to Hollywood specifically. What's that about?
Predictive programming. Yeah, the idea there is that media, especially movies, TV shows, entertainment, is used to subtly condition the public, to get us used to the idea of future events by showing them in fiction first.
So in this context, the suggestion would be that Hollywood is deliberately softening us up for the NWO agenda.
That's the claim within the theory, yes. Yeah. That Hollywood is being used intentionally to desensitize people, make them more accepting of whatever this supposed globalist agenda entails. And, of course, the internet, social media, they've just massively amplified these kinds of ideas, allowed them to spread and morph very quickly.
Okay, let's get more specific about Hollywood symbolism. We mentioned that Master's thesis looking at Star Wars, The Force Awakens. What specific symbols did the researcher claim were Illuminati-related in that film?
Right. The thesis identified 7 specific visual elements that the researcher interprets through an Illuminati lens. Let's see. There's the all-seeing eye, often linked to the Egyptian Eye of Horus. Then a recurring light symbol, something called the Theosophy-crowned Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail.
Yeah.
Also, a particular geometric-shaped symbol, the skull and bones motif, depictions of black crows, or maybe a reference to a rock group. The thesis isn't perfectly clear there. And finally, the X cross saltire, like St. Andrew's cross.
Wow, that's quite a list. Yeah. And how does the thesis interpret the meaning of these symbols?
Well, it offers specific interpretations. The all-seeing eye is taken to represent Ra, the Egyptian sun god, but also protection. The light symbol is interpreted as representing spiritual illumination.
Makes sense.
The skull and bones are linked, perhaps obviously to darkness, maybe seeking power. The black crows, or that singing group reference, are seen as symbolizing the human life cycle, birth, death, rebirth perhaps. And the X cross saltire is interpreted pretty directly as a signifier of death.
And the thesis then points to actual moments in the movie where these appear.
Exactly. It tries to pin them down. For example, it points to something resembling the Eye of Horus on a movie poster. It identifies light behind the character Santeca as that light symbol. It cites a scene with a skull-like image and bones as the skull and bones motif. There's apparently a symbol on a robot that's interpreted as the black crows, and an X-cross saltire shape observed in another scene. So yeah, these specific visual details are presented as the evidence for Illuminati symbolism in the film.
Now, we also had that Reddit discussion source, which talked about visual themes more generally in films. Does that offer a different angle on symbolism?
It does, in a way. The Reddit discussion seemed more focused on broader visual ideas, like how elements like air and fire are shown as interconnected, maybe relating to that hermetic idea of as above, so below, the macrocosm mirrored in the microcosm.
Okay, more philosophical.
Yeah, and it also talked about the eye, just generally, as a point of identification, how the viewer's gaze connects with the character's inner world. So while it's still about visual interpretation, it's looking at much broader themes. It kind of highlights how subjective interpreting symbols in film can be, you know. It's a bit of a contrast to the very specific targeted interpretations in the thesis.
That makes sense. Now, another huge part of modern Illuminati theories is celebrity involvement. What do our sources say about that?
Oh, yeah, that's massive. One of the articles we have, I think it was from Watch Mojo, actually lists a whole bunch of celebrities, pop stars, actors who were rumored to be involved with the Illuminati.
And what's the evidence usually cited?
It often comes down to symbols again. Seeing triangles, or maybe that all-seeing eye motif, in their music videos and photo shoots during performances. These visual cues get interpreted as signs of affiliation, pledges of allegiance, basically.
So the same pattern of interpreting visual details but applied to people now, not just films.
Exactly. And there's this belief woven into the theories, mentioned in the IU Scholarworks source too, that some celebrities are essentially, well, puppets, that they're controlled by the Illuminati, put into these positions of fame and influence to help push the agenda, maybe control the rest of the industry. It becomes a way to explain massive success. Oh, they must have made a deal.
Well, one of our other articles, the HuffPost UK piece, offered a kind of counter-explanation for all this, right? Suggesting maybe the industry itself is playing into it.
Yes, that's a really interesting angle. That article suggests that the music industry, maybe the entertainment world more broadly, is perfectly aware of this fascination with Illuminati aesthetics. And, well, they might even be exploiting it.
For publicity?
For publicity, for financial gain. The article makes the point that controversy, buzz, even negative buzz around conspiracy theories drives attention. It gets people talking, watching, buying. So maybe it's not secret control, but savvy marketing?
Or artists playing along.
Yeah, the article mentions that too, that some artists might even playfully or maybe deliberately fuel these rumors themselves. It just adds to the mystique, blurs the lines even further between what might be real belief and what's just, performance or branding.
That really complicates the picture. Are they being controlled, or are they maybe using the theories themselves?
It's probably a mix and likely varies case by case. It's complex, and that IU Scholarworks paper adds more context here too. It shows how older celebrity conspiracy rumors, like, the ones about Michael Jackson faking his death or Paul McCartney being replaced.
Right, so it's classic.
Those get sort of repackaged and folded into the modern Illuminati narrative. It just shows, again, how flexible this framework is. It just absorbs new figures, new anxieties over time.
Okay, let's maybe shift gears slightly. What about the psychology behind believing these things? Why are these kinds of theories, especially linking powerful entities like Hollywood or the government with secret societies, so appealing to some people?
That's a crucial question. One of the psychological studies we looked at suggests that, well, conspiracy theories can offer a narrative that seems to make sense of a confusing or scary world. They provide a seemingly coherent story, often blaming complex events on the deliberate actions of a powerful, hidden, usually malevolent elite.
It offers an explanation, even if it's a frightening one.
Exactly, and certain psychological factors might make people more receptive. Things like a strong need for cognitive closure, wanting clear, simple, definitive answers, even if they're wrong. Or feelings of powerlessness, a perceived lack of control over one's own life or world events. Believing in a conspiracy can, paradoxically, give a sense of understanding, of knowing what's really going on.
Right, a sense of having privileged knowledge. So, bringing it back to the core hypothesis, we started with intentional government concealment of a Hollywood Illuminati link. Based on the sources we've discussed, what are the main counter-arguments or reasons for skepticism? What challenges that specific idea?
Well, based strictly on the materials we've reviewed for this deep dive, there are several significant points of skepticism. First, and perhaps most fundamentally, there's just a lack of substantiated historical evidence that the original Bavarian Illuminati continued to exist or wield influence after the late 18th century.
Historical basis is shaky.
Very shaky. Second, some organizations that often get pulled into these theories, like the Priory of Sion, have actually been proven to be hoaxes, deliberate fabrications. That really undermines the whole idea of an ancient, unbroken lineage of secret societies.
Okay. What else?
Then you have groups like the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, critics certainly argue they're influential in policy circles, and that's a valid debate. But characterizing them as a tiny secret cabal running the world from the shadows? Well, our sources describe them more as large membership-based policy discussion forums. It makes the secret cabal idea seem pretty improbable.
So lots of influential people, but not necessarily a hidden conspiracy in the way the theory suggests.
Right, and fundamentally, regarding the specific hypothesis of intentional government concealment, none of the sources we examined actually provided concrete evidence to support that claim. There's lots of speculation about symbols, about celebrity behavior, about historical anxieties, but nothing directly substantiating that governments are actively hiding a proven link.
So while the theories themselves are widespread and fascinating in how they evolve and use symbolism, the specific claim of government cover-up doesn't seem to hold up based on this material.
Based on the evidence presented in these particular sources, no, it doesn't appear substantiated.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of this fascinating exploration. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.